What if I told you we just found a secret alien-level hack to see inside the Great Pyramids of Giza without even touching them? Like, forget drilling, forget jackhammers. Seriously, these things, the Giza pyramids, these massive stone tombs built for some seriously spoiled pharaohs way back in the 4th dynasty, think way before your grandpa's grandpa's grandpa, they've been basically a giant silent stone vault, keeping their secrets locked down tighter than Fort Knox for millennia. For years, the only way archaeologists could poke around was with old-school chisels and hammers, basically giving these ancient wonders permanent, ugly scars. But then, 2015 rolls around, and boom! Suddenly, the game changes with this insane new tech they called ScanPyramids, a total archaeological mic drop that lets us see the guts of these behemoths using nothing but heat. You guys are not ready for what we're about to uncover. All right, people, buckle up, because we're diving deep into the Giza playbook with this multinational dream team. We're talking Egypt, France, Canada, and Japan, basically the Avengers of archaeology, but instead of fighting Thanos, they're trying to figure out what's hiding inside the biggest stone Lego set ever built, the Great Pyramid of Khufu. The mission, should they choose to accept it, was laser-focused, used totally non-destructive, non-invasive tech, meaning no drills, no dynamite, no oops, we made a new entrance, on this 4,500-year-old beast. And not just any part, but the main event, Khufu's throne, the king's chamber. This new wave of tech promised more than just finding secret rooms. They were aiming for a detailed thermal blueprint, a spectral map that could expose the pyramid's skeletal structure, any hidden voids, or even construction weak spots, all from the outside. So thermal scanning, reading the spectral fingerprints of dead time. So how are they doing this magic trick? They're rolling out the big guns, infrared thermography. This isn't just pointing a fancy thermometer at the rock, it's way cooler. They're measuring the radiant energy pouring off the surface and translating it into visual images that highlight the tiniest temperature wobbles, what the eggheads call thermal contrast. Think of it like listening for a secret heartbeat inside a giant cold stone statue. If you see a tiny flicker in the temperature, that's a clue. The ScanPyramids crew approached this with a level of obsession that would make a video game completionist proud. They leveraged the pyramid's daily thermal rhythm, the cosmic ebb and flow of heat absorption and release. They had two key moments to watch. Number one, the preheat phase, the sunlight injection. This is when the harsh Egyptian sun hits those outer limestone blocks. The heat starts pumping into the surface, like turning the oven to bake pyramids. Number two, the cool down phase, the cold retreat. This is when the sun dips and all that stored energy starts leaking back into the desert night. It's like watching a giant battery drain. The physics here is pretty straightforward, honestly. If the entire pyramid was just solid rock, it would heat up and cool down at the exact same rate across the board. It would be perfectly boring. But if there's a big empty air pocket, a nasty cold void behind a section, or if there's some weird dense mortar mix, or even just an internal air current doing its own thing, that specific spot is going to absorb heat differently and dump it back out at a totally different speed. This difference creates what they call a thermal anomaly, a giant glowing question mark stamped right onto the exterior. The Khufu anomaly, finding stones that are literally on fire in infrared, 2015. The scanning barely started and bam, the thermal cameras immediately started picking up something highly unusual and frankly kind of alarming right on the face of the Great Pyramid. This thermal rebellion was centered near the base on the eastern side. They saw 3 adjacent blocks glowing this super bright pink in the thermal images, which, trust me, in the world of infrared means fever. This wasn't just a mild case of the chills. These experts confirmed that the temperature of these three stones was running 4 to 6 degrees Celsius hotter than the rocks chilling right next to them. That gap in the thermal system sent the entire global archaeological community into a complete tailspin. It was proof positive that the pyramids still held secrets, a hidden internal anatomy that refused to play nice. The Egyptian minister of antiquities at the time, Mamdouh el-Damati, famously said these three stones were hiding a brand new secret and that the pyramid had essentially just breathed out some of its held-in breath. How wild is that?
Okay, so we've mapped out these totally weird heat spots, right? It's like finding a secret glowing hotspot on an otherwise normal map. And when you see that discrepancy, that weird thermal handshake going on, the scientific brains start firing up hypotheses faster than a rocket launch to figure out what's behind this physics head-scratcher. This isn't just about playing peekaboo in the king's chamber anymore. We're diving deep into the guts of the actual building structure. Seriously, the secrets are hidden in the blueprint, people. We've got a few blockbuster theories trying to explain why these specific blocks are running hotter than a summer day in Phoenix. Check these out. Internal air pockets, or voids. Picture this. You've got these giant stones, and maybe, just maybe, there are hidden little air tunnels or empty gaps tucked away behind them. If you've got air trapped in there, it acts like nature's own insulation, a tiny thermal blanket. This means the stone sits there soaking up the sun, but the heat doesn't want to transfer down deep because it's bouncing off an air cushion. So what happens? The rock stays warmer for way longer than its totally solid neighbors. It's basically cheating the heat transfer game. Internal air currents. Okay, what if there's a hidden ventilation system that the ancient Egyptians were super good at hiding? We're talking about some secret, warm airflow, maybe sneaking up from the deep underground tombs. If warm air is moving through these hidden ducts, it's going to directly warm up the stones it touches, messing with our surface temperature readings. It's like having an invisible hairdryer aimed at specific bricks. Building material variation. This one is wild. Maybe these three specific hot stones weren't quarried from the same spot as the rest of the blocks in that row. Or perhaps the mortar, that sticky cement holding everything together, is totally different. If the mix of cement behind stone A is denser or has different thermal properties than the cement behind stone B, they're going to conduct heat differently. It's like mixing regular sugar into coffee versus using a special sugar substitute. The heat flow changes entirely. So, our mission, should we choose to accept it, and we totally do because this is awesome, is to dismantle this phenomenon we call thermal contrast. We're moving beyond just pointing at a screen and saying, hey, that's hot. We're going full forensic science, breaking down the physics that makes certain stones act like they're whispering a secret that's been buried for millennia. We're going to see how this temperature difference isn't just a clue about hidden rooms, but potentially a flashing red sign indicating massive structural flaws, or maybe even some next-level secret ancient building tech that we totally missed. This is the super cool high-tech bridge connecting our fancy thermal cameras to the oldest, maybe even slightly cursed architectural secrets in history. The scientific deep dive, physics, cameras, and infrared superpowers. We can't crack this mystery, this thermal dance party happening on the pyramids where some stones look like they're secretly on fire, unless we strap in and dive headfirst into the wild world of heat transfer physics and cutting-edge thermal imaging technology. These thermal cameras aren't just glorified digital thermometers. Nah, they are scientific windows, letting us see the energy our squishy human eyes can't even perceive. They let us peek inside massive structures without having to, actually perform invasive surgery on a pyramid. That would be a big ol' no thank you. Thermal imaging tech, unmasking the invisible radiation. The camera's whole job is to spot thermal contrast. They didn't just point it randomly, though. They were strategic. They scanned at super precise times, right at sunrise, when the limestone exterior starts getting absolutely blasted by the sun and sucks up that heat like a giant sponge. And then again at sunset, when the whole structure starts, and I mean this literally, bleeding that stored heat back out into the night. If you have a big block of dense, solid stone, it heats up and cools down at one rate. But if there's a hollow space, a hidden chamber, or even just a patch of material that's less dense, it heats up faster or cools down faster. That tiny difference in speed, that contrast, is what lets these cameras yell, "Aha, something's different back here." To figure out why stone A is sweating while stone B is chilling, we got to get into the actual rock material of the pyramids, limestone. Specifically, we need to talk about two key players. Thermal mass. Think of this as the rock's stamina. It's how much heat energy a material can suck up and store. Since these pyramids are basically mountains of rock, they have astronomical thermal mass. That means they gobble up tons of solar energy during the day, and then, like a slow-motion energy vending machine, they release it back super slowly at night. Thermal conductivity. This is the speed limit for heat transfer through the material. Limestone is dense, so generally heat moves through it at a pretty consistent clip. In a perfect world, all adjacent stones should heat up and cool down following the exact same timeline. But if the internal composition changes, maybe there's an air void hiding behind one, or the mortar mix is completely different, those properties go completely haywire. Bam! That's what generates the thermal contrast we see blazing on the surface. The brilliant team behind ScanPyramids used the natural daily solar cycle to trick these differences out. This technique is called passive thermography. We use the sun's natural energy like a catalyst instead of blasting the pyramid with our own artificial heat sources, which could totally mess up the readings. The warm-up phase, sunrise. When the sun hits the pyramid, the stones that have an air gap behind them, a hidden passage or chamber, heat up way faster than the solid-packed stones. Why? Because there's less material to heat up, lower thermal mass. Plus, that trapped air acts like a terrible insulator. The heat gets stuck right at the surface and piles up, making the surface super toasty. The cool-down phase, sunset. Once the sun dips and darkness takes over, the solid stones, thanks to their massive thermal mass, start bleeding off that stored heat agonizingly slowly. But the stones backed by an insulating void, they lose their surface heat way faster and way more dramatically, making them look like cold, dark patches on the thermal map. By tracking the temperatures through these two opposing phases, experts can definitively say this anomaly isn't just a fluke from a passing cloud. It's a consistent disruption in heat flow deep inside the structure. That's majorly cool. All right, buckle up, because we are diving headfirst into the Giza Plateau, and things are about to get spicy. We're talking about what I call the case file. Khufu's 3 hot rocks near the base of the Big Kahuna.
So back in 2015, scientists pulled off a major score. They dropped this massive thermal signature discovery right near the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Seriously, this wasn't just some random temperature spike on a dash cam. This was rock-solid proof of concept that non-invasive snooping, meaning looking without smashing anything, is the absolute cheat code for cracking ancient mysteries. This whole incredible operation, it was called the ScanPyramids project. Think of it like a massive international science heist planning session, but instead of stealing gold, they're stealing secrets. The International A-Team and their tech arsenal. This whole shebang kicked off in October 2015, and it wasn't just a couple of dudes with metal detectors. Nah, this was a full-blown international coalition. It was like the Avengers, but for archaeology and physics. We're talking Egyptian expertise mingling with brainiacs from 4 different countries. Egypt, of course, France, hooking up the heritage preservation and innovation side of things, Canada, specifically Laval University bringing their A-game, and Japan with Nagoya University and the High Energy Accelerator Research Organization, which sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi flick. These guys meant business.
And what did they bring to the party? A seriously sweet tech setup. Get ready, because this is where the magic happens. First up, the main heavy hitter, infrared thermography. Think of this as a high-tech heat-seeking missile camera. Its whole job is to spot thermal contrast. They didn't just point it randomly, though. They were strategic. They scanned at super precise times, right at sunrise, when the limestone exterior starts getting absolutely blasted by the sun and sucks up that heat like a giant sponge. And then again at sunset, when the whole structure starts, and I mean this literally, bleeding that stored heat back out into the night. If you have a big block of dense, solid stone, it heats up and cools down at one rate. But if there's a hollow space, a hidden chamber, or even just a patch of material that's less dense, it heats up faster or cools down faster. That tiny difference in speed, that contrast, is what lets these cameras yell, "Aha! Something's different back here." Then, for the super deep dive, they brought out the big guns, muon radiography. Okay, this is bonkers cool. Muons are these tiny subatomic particles that are constantly bombarding Earth because of cosmic rays hitting the atmosphere way up high. Think of it like an endless rain of tiny invisible bullets. These muons are tough enough to punch right through solid rock. So when they hit a dense part of the pyramid, a bunch of them get stopped, like running into a brick wall. But if they hit a giant empty space, a void inside the pyramid, right, they sail through way easier and hit the detector underneath. By counting how many muons make it through, scientists can basically draw a 3D blueprint of what's hidden inside, all without drilling a single hole. No scratching the paint, no touching the ancient walls. It's totally wild. Whoa, hold the phone. We've got the crazy temperature spikes, the ones that made the heat sensors practically need therapy. But that wasn't even the wildest part of this whole thermal mystery. What actually took this from weird Anomaly to call the secret agents was how these three sizzling stones were actually placed. It's like finding a single brick in the Great Wall of China that's installed upside down. Seriously.
Okay, so picture this. The entire pyramid is supposed to be a masterclass in stability. We're talking about stacking 2.3 million massive blocks, and the standard operating procedure, the ancient Egyptian structural blueprint, was to lay these giants horizontally. Why? Gravity, baby. You stack them flat to keep the whole mountain from saying "see ya" and collapsing into a pile of rubble. That's the normal vibe. But then you have the abnormal situation. Remember those 3 hot spots we were freaking out about? Well, the team noticed something architecturally bananas about one of those 3 super hot blocks. It wasn't lying flat like its buddies. Nope. One of the scorching blocks was standing up vertically. Imagine trying to build a Jenga tower where one block is perfectly vertical while all the others are flat. It screams, "I'm not supposed to be here." Now combine the heat signature, which screams there might be a gap behind me, with this weird vertical placement. That's when the researchers went from, interesting data, to holy smokes, we found a secret door. This odd configuration, paired with the high heat reading, strongly suggested this wasn't just some random, slightly lazy construction job. This was screaming out that this spot was either a sneaky access point, a disguised door leading to a hidden passageway, or maybe, just maybe, a secret chamber chilling right behind the facade. This gave them actual, tangible proof that these heat variations weren't just Mother Nature messing with the stones. It wasn't just random rock differences. It could be intentional structural weak points, or maybe just pockets of air inside that are heating up and cooling down differently. And guess what? This concrete visual evidence is what gave the ScanPyramids crew the ultimate green light to bring out the heavy hitters, the muon detectors. And when they ran the muon scan near the Queen's chamber, bam! They found a huge void nearby. That thermal anomaly wasn't just a fluke, it was the surface-level symptom of some deep, mysterious internal structure. Mind-blowing stuff.
Here's the kicker. Deep inside the Great Pyramid, the temperature is absolutely rock-solid stable year-round, sitting right around 20 degrees Celsius, about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't care if it's a scorching Egyptian summer day or a chilly night. That's the magic of 2.3 million thermal bricks acting as insane insulation. But those surface hotspots, they smash that perfect internal equilibrium. They aren't saying the whole pyramid is cooking, no way. They are pointing to a highly localized structural glitch or a failure point in that outer shell. Something is letting the heat outside or the heat inside interact with the surface unevenly. To figure out which of the competing theories is the truth, voids, air currents, or bad rock choices, you need to go deeper than just a flashlight. That's why they brought in the big guns, muon radiography, the tech used by ScanPyramids. That lets them essentially X-ray the pyramid to find those internal voids and confirm whether the heat signature was lying or if it was truly pointing to some terrifyingly massive secret configuration hidden inside Khufu's monument.
That last sentence? Man, that set the stage for some seriously wild detective work. It let them basically X-ray the pyramid to find those internal voids and confirm whether the heat signature was lying or if it was truly pointing to some terrifyingly massive secret configuration hidden inside Khufu's monument. The indirect reveal, hooking up the heat anomaly to the chambers we found. Okay, so those heat signatures that the infrared cameras picked up way back in 2015, these weren't just some random fuzzy data spots messing with the surface. Think of them as the utterly terrifying compass that pointed the way for the biggest non-invasive archaeological dig in modern history at the pyramids of Giza. Seriously, these temperature variations, especially where they hit a scorching 6 degrees Celsius hotter near the base of the Great Pyramid, were a direct line connecting the visible blips in how the stones were heating up and cooling down to actual hidden structures deep inside that massive stone beast. It's like finding a weird hotspot on your Wi-Fi router and realizing it perfectly lines up with your neighbor's secret underground bunker. From thermal readings to scary archaeology predictions, the very first clue, the new secret, as the former Egyptian minister of antiquities Mamdouh el-Damati called it, was finding 3 distinct blocks of stone clustered together at the base of the Great Pyramid, specifically on the east face, showing a noticeably higher temperature. El-Damati straight up said this phenomenon was particularly exciting, and spoiler alert, it makes 0 sense if the pyramid is just a solid pile of rocks. When you're analyzing thermal variance, here's the deal. The warmer spots mean the material surrounding them is less dense. That lets the heat from deep inside wiggle its way up, or it lets warm air sneak through hidden pathways. For a gargantuan thing like Khufu's pyramid, this temperature difference basically gives you 2 major, slightly alarming possibilities. 1. Air pockets, or empty spaces behind the stones. Less rock means less mass, which lets the heat build up or allows warm air currents, maybe from unknown depths, to drift around. Imagine an entire section of wall that's secretly hollow. Whoosh! 2. Different building materials. Maybe they used a type of limestone that's just naturally less dense or more porous than the stuff around it. This could totally signal a specially constructed zone or, a sealed-up, sneaky entrance. Now, these thermal predictions didn't solve the entire mystery overnight, but bam, they proved something huge. The pyramids are still hiding anomalies that demand deeper snooping. This was the gasoline poured on the fire that kicked off the massive international ScanPyramids project. Muon scanning, the hard evidence backing up non-invasive guesses. To actually confirm the theories that came from those initial heat maps, the ScanPyramids team pulled out the big guns, a much more advanced tech capable of slicing right through that thick limestone, muon radiography. So what the heck are muons? They are subatomic particles, like tiny, super-speedy cosmic bullets that are naturally created when cosmic rays slam into Earth's upper atmosphere.
These particles can punch straight through dense rock, but they get scattered or absorbed way less often when they pass through air or empty space. The scientists basically planted specialized detectors inside the pyramid in the known chambers and corridors and used these muons to build a 3D map of the pyramid's internal density. It's basically performing a high-tech ancient world CT scan without ever touching the structure. The results from using the muon tech were an absolutely stunning confirmation that those first thermal anomalies were legit indicators of major structural differences inside. The discovery of the Big Void in 2017, the muon tech was able to pinpoint a previously unknown Big Void that stretched for about 30 meters, chilling right above the corridor leading to the Queen's chamber. This discovery sent shockwaves through the world. It proved for real that non-invasive tech could uncover secrets thousands of years old, buried under mountains of rock. Mind blown! The 2019 chamber find. Following that up, they found a second huge chamber located off to the right side of the King's chamber. This just cranked up the conviction among archaeologists and architects that there are even more hidden internal structures lurking in the darkness, waiting to be found. The connection between the thermal scanning and these muon discoveries is the terrifyingly systematic sequence of events. It started with that initial surface trick, the thermal reading that flagged an abnormal variance, whether it was just air or different construction. That variance gave them the green light to deploy the super expensive complex muon tech, which in turn provided the hard, undeniable proof of deep voids, almost like a hidden vascular system pulsing inside the stone. Non-invasive scanning tech validating the secrets. The ScanPyramids project clearly shows that the future of archaeology is all about being non-invasive. Instead of just randomly digging around or risking damage to these incredibly fragile historical monuments, modern tech acts like a highly skilled anatomist performing a surgical, precise checkup on the pyramid's internal scaffolding.
Thermal cameras are like the initial EKG, the visual checkup, spotting weaknesses or differences right on the structure's skin. Muon rays are the X-ray or the full CT scan, letting them see the actual internal architecture and measure its dimensions without physically laying a hand on it. This technology has completely shifted the game from reckless guessing to hard scientific confirmation. It forcefully debunked some older theories that claimed the pyramid was basically just a solid lump, minus the known passages, and heavily emphasized the presence of hidden voids and secret rooms that might, one day, hold the final secret of the architects who built this marvel sometime between 2613 and 2494 BCE. Artificial intelligence and big data, hunting for hidden secrets. Okay, here's the real brainbuster. We've collected insane amounts of thermal data. I mean big data, people. We're talking about temperature readings captured during the heating phase and the cooling phase. Sometimes the differences we see between the rocks are huge. We're talking up to 6 degrees Celsius swing in some stones. Now here's the million-dollar question. Why is that spot hotter or colder? Is it because there's an empty air gap right behind the surface? Is it just a weird draft sneaking through internal channels? Or is the rock density just naturally different right there? See the problem? Too many variables. That's where our computational superhero swoops in, artificial intelligence, AI. This stuff is relentless. It's the ultimate analytical tool that refuses to accept maybe for an answer. The AI jumps in for filtering environmental noise. We develop these super advanced machine learning algorithms, basically digital brains we train intensely, to look at the thermal signals and say, nope, that weird hotspot, that's just the sun reflecting off a dusty surface layer. Ignore it. Then it says, aha, this consistent deep-seated temperature anomaly, that points directly to an internal void, like an air pocket. It separates the actual structural secrets from the garden variety junk floating around in the data. Once we have that clean signal, bam, we get 3D mapping. The AI takes the thermal data, combines it with readings from other tech like ground-penetrating radar, and yes, those pesky muon scans, and it stitches it all together. It creates a digital twin of the pyramid's internal structure. Imagine a perfect super high-resolution video game model, but it's showing you exactly what's inside the actual pyramid. These models are so detailed, they let us measure the precise dimensions of those voids we find. Remember that massive void they found back in 2017, stretching over 30 meters long? The AI helps us nail down exactly how big that thing really is. Insane, right? Methodological and ethical hurdles for monumental research. As we get better and better at finding the secrets that have been locked away for millennia, guess what? Our responsibility goes through the roof. Researchers holding these awesome tools have to walk a very fine ethical tightrope. First, the ethics of discovery. Our number one priority, and I mean rule number one, must always be preserving the integrity of the artifact. We are guests in history's house. These technologies must remain non-damaging. You absolutely under no circumstances start drilling holes or smashing things open unless every single non-invasive imaging technique has been exhausted and the scientific reason for breaching it is totally rock solid. Nobody can argue. It has to be totally ironclad science, no excuses. Second, we need protocol standardization. Right now, you have teams from all over the globe, Egypt, France, Canada, Japan, all gathering thermal data under wildly different field conditions. We need unified international standards for how we collect and analyze this data in the desert heat versus, say, a damp basement. This ensures that when Team Japan gets a result, Team France can look at the same data and get the same verifiable, repeatable scientific conclusion. No guesswork allowed.
So, the pyramid has spilled some of its secrets. The officials are practically shouting it from the rooftops, but the project isn't done. The next phases are all about final confirmation and figuring out the purpose of these giant empty spaces. The team's mission now is to transform those thermal anomalies and voids into tangible, meaningful archaeological discoveries. What does this require? Focused investigation. They might need to use even more precise techniques, maybe tiny super safe entry points that are minimally invasive just to confirm what those chambers actually are. Are they just structural gaps because the ancient guys messed up a calculation? Or are they genuine hidden burial chambers? Some experts are still betting big that Khufu himself is chilling out in some totally unexpected room hidden away from tomb robbers for 4,000 years. And finally, continuous monitoring. We got to switch this from a one-off scan to a constant monitoring system. By keeping the thermal sensors running, we can track dynamic changes in the structure over years. This deepens our understanding of their ancient building methods and just how ridiculously genius their engineering skills were. Look, the future of archaeology isn't about some dude with a shovel randomly digging up dirt. It's about strapping on our high-tech glasses, our new technological eye that can literally see through millennia of solid stone, revealing secrets with minimal touching and keeping these epic monuments looking majestic while the clock ticks on. How cool is that? So boom, get this, even after thousands of years, this ancient brick stack, the Great Pyramid, is still playing hard to get. It hasn't coughed up all its secrets yet, not even close. Those thermal cameras we used, they weren't just some fancy gadget trick. That was straight up physics whispering secrets out of the stone itself. It basically screamed proof that this megastructure is packed with hidden rooms and construction weirdness that we haven't even found yet. Those hotspots we saw are just the tip of the iceberg in this mind-bending mystery. This whole project screams that high-tech gear is our golden ticket to cracking the code on the insane architectural genius and sheer headache these ancient Egyptian builders faced over 4,500 years ago. That's somewhere between 2613 and 2494 BC, just so you know your history. Check out Source 1.
All right, guys, that is absolutely bananas. If your brain just did a full-on 360 flip because of that revelation, you know what time it is. You gotta smash that like button right now. Seriously, give it the old clickaroo. And if you haven't already subscribed, what are you even doing with your life? Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next mind-blowing journey into the unknown. Drop a comment below and tell me, what do you think is hiding in those thermal shadows? Spill the tea. If you found this video valuable, and let's be real, you probably did, hit like to help us reach more people, and subscribe to be the first to know the truth when we uncover the next secret lair. If you want to support